you want to talk about innovation, and when it really matters, when it really can kind of move the ball down the field, is when you find that niche, when the problem is real enough
Yep.
and not currently addressed well enough.
Hey, everybody. I'm here with Pete Daring today. He's been a friend of mine for a while, and he is the awesome founder of Peak Design. Really cool design company. They are, if you're in the camera space, you definitely know who they are. If you're just into really cool adventure gear, you also probably know who they are. Based out of San Francisco, really design first brand, doing great things not only for the adventure consumer, but also for the environment. So I'm super excited to have Pete here. He's an inspiration when it comes to innovation. And Pete, if you don't mind, I'd like to start there. You're an extremely innovative guy. You're an extremely innovative brand. Can you describe your approach to innovation and how you think about that?
Sure. Well, first off, man, great to be here with you. It's been a while. Miss hanging out with you in Chicago. Those were some good
Mm-hmm.
days. And I'm glad you have me on this podcast, man. Great opportunity to chat. Innovation is it's an interesting thing. I actually, the any company like this, innovation is really an evolution. And I think that when I think of kind of the story of peak design and how it kind of all unfolded, there wasn't that much that was sort of premeditated and predictive right at the
Mm-hmm.
beginning. But there are a couple of things. There are
Okay.
really two invention ideas that I point to. Well, I can tell you the basics of them. Number one, I just wanted to be I wanted to work for myself. And so that was the actual goal which drove the whole thing. Actually, it wasn't that as much as I just wanted to be in control of my own time. I think I could have been completely happy working for somebody else so long as I was in control of my own time. But maybe the easiest way to get there was an entrepreneurial venture. The capture camera clip solved a very specific problem for me as a
Mm-hmm.
photographer. A way
Mm-hmm.
to carry a camera on the outside of your body, totally hands free, rigidly supported, not swinging around. Fortunately, like this is you want to talk about innovation, and when it really matters, when it really can kind of move the ball down the field, is when you find that niche, when the problem is real enough
Yep.
and not currently addressed well enough. That's when you have the opportunity to carve out, a real little corner of the market.
Yep.
And that's what happened with that first product. And from there, it kind of set in line a series of principles that really has governed the way that we design products for quite some time. I I think it would be kind of fun to take you on the evolution. Like there was capture, right, which was this clip
Mm-hmm.
that said get rid of your camera strap. But in
Yep.
actual fact, after thinking about it for like a year and having customers say like, hey, I feel uncomfortable when I don't have a strap now that now that I, like, I, capture is great, but not all the time. And so then we looked at camera straps and said, well, the actual problem with those is that they're the pain in the ass to take on and off. There was really no good system for quick attach and deploy of those. So we invented a really good one of those. That's utility patent kind of number two for peak
Okay.
design. And we've sold over 5 million camera straps at
Awesome.
this point. Those little anchors that are black and red that are hanging off, tons of cameras out there. I think we've made something like 25 million of those in
Wow.
our, I guess, 12 years of making camera straps. And those things led us to enough prominence in the photography space where we had one really influential photographer back in the day. His name was Trey Ratcliffe. We're talking like
Okay.
early days before influencing was influencing. This guy was an influencer. He had a
You just had
massive
someone passionate. You had someone passionate about your brand. It was organic influencing.
it was organic influencing, and the guy had a blog that was extremely well read amongst photographers who care a lot about photography. And photography is one of those niches where, or really, to describe it as a niche, maybe not quite appropriate. It's one of those things that people can be incredibly passionate about. They may have a job and a family, but what they describe themselves first and foremost is like, I'm a photographer.
Mm.
And I think that was also not premeditated, but maybe I was driven to that because I also was one of those people who was just driven to say, like, what do I enjoy? I enjoy photography. I enjoy
Hmm.
adventure, travel, taking pictures about it, writing stories. So you combine kind of this fun industry where people can really throw their passions, and
Yep.
it sort of allows you to pour an extraordinary amount of thought and effort into the products that they might
Hmm.
eventually buy, because they're not just there to, I don't know, change a tire or do some other kind of utilitarian thing. They really deeply care about what they're doing. So
Yeah.
I think that's how it comes, man. You gotta find the real problems, and you gotta solve them in a new way.
I absolutely, I always think innovation is more about the problem than it is about the solution. Like, obviously, without the solution, the innovation doesn't exist. But you know about the solution, that's a square peg looking for a square hole. You can't. A lot of people, you probably talk to a lot of people like I do that, they're like, hey man, you started a company. I want to start one. Here's the idea, and they pitch you with the solution first, and you're like, cool, but like, what are you solving, and who cares? And I think you tapped into both those things. You had both, what's the problem, because you had your own personal need, that you
Yeah,
understood this problem, and you also tapped into, very importantly, a passionate uh, group of people that also cared about this and have capacity to support the innovation. They're used to spending thousands of dollars on their equipment, so when you come along with your great accessories, that
hmm,
you're not their most expensive part of their tech stack, if you will. You're an
right.
important part of their tech stack, but you bring tremendous value and functionality and design. I think you've crushed it. I want to ask you about a different type of innovation that um, you I don't know if I call you this or if the industry calls you this, but I think about you as the king of Kickstarter.
Ah,
So that's innovation too. That's business model innovation. Like, most people would have to get venture funding, or they have to have, like a rich uncle to make it happen for them. Can you talk a little bit about how you innovated the ability to grow the business through, Indiegogo and Kickstarter?
sure, sure, sure. Yeah. I mean, I certainly don't get credit for, well, obviously not for creating the platform. Like, that just, it fell into my lap, right? These two things, like right when I was getting started with my innovation, Kickstarter had about a year and a half of like gaining some prominence, and it's a snappy idea, right?
Hmm.
And so like I really hit that at just the perfect incline. What's
Hmm.
interesting is that we have not turned away from it,
Hmm.
whereas well, most companies that will launch on Kickstarter, I mean, there definitely are, actually. It has provided a nice foundation for quite a few companies, more
Hmm.
than you probably realize, have an early product on Kickstarter. And it's very cool to see now, kind of a decade on, a lot of these companies that started in 2014 or 2015 or 16 with that idea on Kickstarter, and they've launched it into some sort of a cottage brand. I mean, even starting to get kind of bought up and swallowed up by the ecosystem of acquisition and all that shit. For Peak Design, though, we're very content to keep using the platform because we've got an incredible community on there,
Yeah.
and it still provides something that's really unique, which is basically the ability to discount brand new products and bring them through a direct sales channel, which is more profit, which is more profit heavy, and kind of create an event around the launch of a product that far supersedes, um, kind of what a company like the ability to have a launch event, um, in any other fashion. And so I, like I think that it would be difficult for a lot of companies to go back to Kickstarter kind of year after year after year as we do.
Yep.
But because we've built up kind of the reputation and the expectation of doing that, it's something that just continues to work for us.
Awesome.
And the number one thing that allows for that is that we we fulfill our promises. It's not something we when we launch a Kickstarter, we're pretty
Sure.
late in the process, and so
Okay.
we know damn well what we're shipping.
Oh, that's actually pretty interesting, because I was gonna tap into. I think you highlighted a few other keystones of like successful innovation right there, which includes feedback from customers, because ultimately you might think you've nailed it, but if you're an N of one and you got
Hmm.
something wrong, and a million people want it a slightly different way. You'd like to hear what that is. As a product person, you really want that feedback from the customer. And I think Kickstarter gives you the ability to do that. But if you are already kind of well down the path by the time you get there, have you ever been able to take feedback through Kickstarter, or maybe even preparing for is there a feedback loop there, or are
There's
you kind of
yeah,
past?
there absolutely is. And we have um, we've utilized that feedback loop quite a lot over the years. I'm thinking right now about like, and sometimes there's still kind of like things you can do to ameliorate a situation. I'm thinking of like on our tripod, we didn't have a way where the tool was going to be stowed. It was like just kind of in a pocket in the tripod bag. And people
Mhm.
are like, no, that's not going to work. It's never going to be there. Like, I don't have the bag, and it's a necessary part of the equation. Like, you need to figure out a way to put this on the product. So basically, we scrambled and we ended up cutting a new tool for a little snap-on plastic piece that then hung out on the leg. I mean, that
Okay.
was a direct result of Kickstarter feedback, just people being really, really kind of up in arms about this. Now, what we've actually gotten good at doing is when we foster that Kickstarter community, we're kind of hitting them up for information during the course of our development. So
Mhm.
we've got that community, and it's just a more effective way because we want to be able to preserve the momentum of a
Yep.
Kickstarter by getting these products to market as soon as possible. And it's better for the backers as well. You don't want to plop, a chunk of money down and then have to wait some indeterminate amount of time for that thing to arrive. And
Yeah.
so I think that's kind of the best way to approach it is make sure that you're soliciting that feedback in other channels so that it
Mhm.
eventually shows up in Kickstarter.
Yeah, you're perfecting that Kickstarter process, and yeah, having sponsored a variety of Kickstarters, you never know if it's really going to happen. There's these cool ideas, and I think you're seeing an evolution of the products for successful Kickstarter, especially if you're going to repeat them.
Yep.
Having the product pretty well down the path,
Yep.
launching on time, fulfilling your promise, starts building that community. Now you have a test panel of users that you can go to get feedback for next products. Pretty great.